Salam, Sadiq.
Alaikum salam.
I'm very scared about recording this because, as you know, we did sit down 2 weeks ago. We got an hour and 5 minutes into the conversation.
Yep.
And I looked down at my laptop and I was just about to make my closing remarks.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that there was an issue and basically we lost the entire file. But what I told you this time is that if for whatever reason it doesn't work out, we're putting out the video. Whatever we have, we're going to put out. Doesn't matter if people can't hear it, but and we've got 2 backup devices as well, just in case. So hopefully this will not be an issue.
Inshallah.
But thank you for obviously understanding and coming back.
Pleasure.
You dressed down a little bit, but it's fine. So did I.
I realized the occasion wasn't as exciting.
Yeah,
anymore,
it wasn't the hype that it once was. But I think there still is a story to tell and a lot to kind of dissect. So I'm going to jump straight in with, I guess, painting a little bit around our background together. So I can't remember the time. You see, last time I had it all like in my head, and it's annoying now. But anyways. Many years ago, when I had a digital marketing agency, and we were still early days of kind of that business, and you had called me and said that you've just started working at this French tech startup, and they're looking for a new website, and you brought me in, had a meeting with one of the senior guys. We didn't get the job. And I forgive you for not pushing hard enough.
And as I said last time, I blame you for the bad proposal. Still holds.
Okay, that's fine. But then fast forward a few years, and we were sat down with some friends chatting, and we were having one of those kind of philosophical conversations about work and where our boundaries are with regards to what work we take on, what we're comfortable doing, and whatever else. And I remember, because it stuck with me for so long after that, but you said something like, "Oh, if there's a client that, you know, morally I have issues with, be it gambling or whatever else, I would just say no. I would refuse to do it." And I said, "Well, who the hell are you to say that in a company? They'll just tell you to get lost." And then someone else, because you're very humble, someone else turned around and was like, "Salim, do you not know he's the CEO?" And I was like, "Hang on, you brought me in as like you were like the intern, you were like the
kid.
You were the kid in a team of 10 people. You were the most junior person, had just kind of come in, and a few years later, we're the CEO of this this quite cool startup that has huge clients and is, you know, making a lot of money and whatever else." And I was baffled, still am to an extent. But you became CEO at the age of 24, which I think in itself is quite remarkable. And we're gonna get to the business end of things, but I think before that, as I said, because I know you personally as well, and I've seen your journey, and we've had conversations now and then about experiences in hunting for a job and just like that progression and development in your own personal journey. So I thought, done enough talking, I'll hand over to you, just to kind of paint a bit of a background as to how you got to the job that you got to, and then obviously progressed through the ranks. But what was it like at entry level, post university? You know, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do, and what was the experience like in looking for a suitable role?
Yeah. Firstly, thank you for having me again. So second time lucky, if that's a thing. We'll make it a thing. It's the journey was pretty mental, to be honest, and quite unexpected, and required a bit of patience, and then kind of looking back on it and kind of going, maybe it did work out for the better, which I think was easier said now than back then, right? Hindsight's 2020. So the story was, I did economics at uni. I was meant to go down a banking, finance, accounting route. Both my parents are accountants, so that was kind of meant to be the journey. My brother's a doctor. He's the GP. No matter how much we debate, I think he's the one
they like most.
He's the loved one, but he'll say, you know, no. But, you know, we'll have that debate later. So when I kind of actively wasn't going to do accounting or banking, I tried to go into the FMCG world, failed miserably, like got to final rounds and kept failing, and I was like, this is annoying. So I eventually left, or it was in final year, and it was about Easter time, I think, where kind of pressure's on to get a job for summer. And I was getting married in summer as well. So like, I need to earn a buck, otherwise that's a bit unfortunate. So I went for a first job interview, and for a first one outside of the FMCG world, so out of the corporate realm. So now we're in like techie, startup-y kind of industry in London, like 300 person businesses, whatever. And there was a recruitment agency. That's kind of where I ended up, which was pretty tough. But anyway, that's another story. And went through the different interview rounds and all good, like really, really enjoyed it. And got to the point whereby they said, okay, everything's fine. MD was happy. The recruiter that was representing was like, should be all good. The MD said, you're in, basically, whatever. Didn't hear from them for a week. And then I got a call from my recruiter saying, oh, culture. I was like, what do you mean culture? They said, yeah, it's KO on culture. And I was like, what do you mean? And basically later I then found out that, and now I'm in the industry and they're kind of trying to be one of our partners, which is always fun, that it's quite a heavy collegiate party culture.
Yeah.
And I could see like, okay, that makes sense. That kind of stood out a bit, but like that kind of didn't resonate with me until today, that was the issue. But when I kind of pieced all the stories together, I had a second experience, which was in another tech startup firm, really cool business, grown massively, just acquired by Salesforce as well. So like pretty sizable now, 5 years on, and went through the interview processes, spoke with the VP of engineering in the US, and he was like, this is the best interview I've ever done, looking forward to working with you. Long story short, I was like,
you're in, basically.
Yeah, I'm in, I'm done, happy days. I remember I was in my parents' living room at the time. I was still at home, and I was like, oh yeah, smashed it, alhamdulillah, everything's gonna work, it's gonna be great. And then they give me a call, and the recruiter's like, yeah, good news, they really liked you, feedback was great, they want you to come in to meet the team on whatever, Thursday, whatever it is, at 5:00. I was like, oh, nice. So this is my first time going into the city at like peak time. Obviously been there before, but like in the work hustle. So I'm getting there, and as I was getting to the office, I'm seeing like, okay, there's like a lot happening outside. I didn't realize just how, drinky or boozy like it can get in the city. That's quite something to see. But anyway, got to the office, and it was in Liverpool Street, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, guys, team, let's go. Sadiq is here. Let's go. And I was like, oh, where are we going? They're like, oh, we're just gonna go out and get to meet the team and all this kind of stuff. Okay, cool. So on our way, and I'm like, okay, I can kind of see where this is going to end up now. And I think it very much felt like, when you're in madrasa and they're like, one day you'll have to choose between shaitan and the angel. It's like at university, like, why don't you come out clubbing tonight? You're like, one day you'll have to face shaitan and the angel. And it was like this repeating, but I was like, in the workplace as well? Like, is that a thing? So they started going to this kind of, I think it was like basically a pub or a bar, and it was summer, so it was outside. And I was like, guys, I'm not going to go into there. I'm like, oh, I'll come. Well, faith, not really my thing. I'm like sweating buckets at this point. I try to explain what's up here. I'm like, yeah, that's not happening. So I'm like, oh, no worries, we can stand outside and just chat. And I was like, okay, we can stand outside and just chat. And there's me like panic that every other person from our community works in Liverpool Street, and they're going to like walk past and be like, what's he doing? Yeah, picture, send it. And then, oh man, it would be pretty rough. Or you see one of them there and you blame it on them and they brought you in. Anyway, so it was like very strange. And obviously I didn't come across too well, I don't think, at that point. And then, later I found out I didn't get the job because it was weird or whatever. So
I think both examples there, number one was you were told culture. And you said you found out that the company's quite laddie, so you probably dodged the bullet there anyway. Yeah. But then... And was it at that company where you met one of the top guys who said we play hard and party hard?
That's a different one.
Was that a different one?
Okay, so a different one. Short story on that is another recruitment business went in, and because it's like recruitment business, they know how to hire, right? They know how to close you. So we went through all the interview rounds, and then the HR person came back in, and she was like, good news, actually. And I think this is part of their ploy. They don't tell you. They say you'll find out in a few weeks, but then they tell you on the day. So it's a bit of an impulse decision. So she came and she's like, actually, good news. You've really impressed everyone, and we want to make you an offer. I was like, oh, okay. So I said, just hold on here and we'll, get the offer details. So she came back in, paper, this is your salary, this is this is that. And I was like, okay. She said, so you're going to take it? I'm like, no, I need some time to consider it. I'm like, why? I said, oh, I've got some other offers on the table as well. I'm just assessing, whatever. They're like, okay, no problem. We'll just get someone to come speak to you. And that's where this MD guy came in. And this was one of the weirdest moments I had in like the job world. So he came, he was like, yeah, well done, mate. Looking forward to you joining us. What's your concerns? I said, I'm just weighing up my options. That's all. I just don't want to make a decision today. He was like, listen, mate, top billers here. We do whatever we want. Cancun, Dubai, you smoke what you want. You do what you want. Whatever you want, I'll get it for you. How about it? I was like, bro, you're pitching the wrong guy here. Like you know, I need a namaz room in the corner. That's what I'm after, and you're offering me like. Anyway, I won't go into details about Dubai, but anyway, so it was. I think all that kind of combined. I was like, okay, this work environment is not going to be as straightforward as I thought it would be. Having hopefully, inshallah, done okay through university, I didn't realize work was going to be a completely different.
So what I guess the question is, because I think everyone in some way, shape or form, if they have been in the working world, has experienced that thing that you mentioned of, being expected to enter a pub to have a casual meet the team type thing.
Yeah.
And I think especially at a time of, and I'm going to call it desperation, because anyone who's just graduated and is anxious about work and what they're going to do, there is that kind of, you want your first job, you need something, you want to impress and whatever else. But how did you at that moment just say, you know what, I can't do this isn't me? Because I think for a lot of people, the answer is, all right, I'll go this one time. And then once I got the job, I'll be like, nah, listen, guys, by the way, I don't do this.
Yeah.
But off the bat, to kind of say that is quite bold.
I don't know. If I was going to say, like, you know, I know exactly why I was able to say no at that point. I couldn't tell you. Maybe being engaged at the time, as weird as it sounds, makes you feel like you've got an extra responsibility. I'm guessing here. I should be able to say to you, I was fearing Allah to my, you know, but I think in my essence, right? And hopefully that is some truthfulness about being God wearing. But I don't know, maybe it's being engaged and you're like, that's not really the kind of guy that I'm meant to be. Yeah. Maybe if some people are like, that's not the kind of son I'm meant to, I honestly don't know.
But then, okay. So then looking more broadly at the experiences, because I think everyone has some sort of, as I said, anyone who's been in this, in the job hunt space, especially in the corporate and that kind of field, you find those moments and whatever else. And what then were you thinking about working? What was your all right, what am I going to do now?
I firstly, in terms of what I thought about work generally, I was like, okay, this is going to be a different play to uni where you can make friends with the guys that you basically like Muslims. I was actually lucky in my course. I had 4 flatmates, or in my first year we were in halls. That's like, you know, 3-4. You don't know who you're going to end up with. But second and third year I was with 4 guys, 1 Muslim and 3 Sikh guys, none of whom drunk. Well, 2 of them drank, but like barely touched it anyway. So we had it was a drink-free flat, which was great. So, you know, I managed to chill out with them and then have community there, whatever. And then I thought, you know, workplace, you don't choose who you hang around with, especially if you're in a small business, right? That's your group, that's your clan. If it's 10, as you said, when I joined my current business, it was 6 or 7 of us initially. So that is the group, and it's rude if you don't go for lunch with everyone. Yeah, it's rude if you don't go for dinner with everyone once a month or whatever. And I get that. I fully get that. So I think I really quickly realized it's going to be a different challenge. That was the first thing. But the second thing, I think I was demotivated. I was a bit down in the dumps to think, why is it that this is such a critical point where when I'm being measured on my competency, it's fine and it's all okay and thumbs up. But when it comes to inverted commas, cultural fit, which is a phrase I hate as well, then I think it's nonsense to talk about cultural fit. You should think about values alignment, because your culture is always going to change depending on the mix. And
culture is different based on the person, regardless, right?
Exactly. So for me, it's always value alignments. When people talk about culture too much, it's like it doesn't sit too well. So yeah, I think I was a bit wary and a bit worried. And then the firm I ended up joining, actually, so that was a weird one where, again, it was recruitment. So there is a bit of a, you know, work hard, play hard culture. They were a lot more toned down than the average in the industry, which is what I saw. They also knew a family member of mine, so they kind of knew that I had a bit of a different view on things. And in my first few months, they were like, okay, cool, well done, you're in the top billers dinner or whatever. And I was like, oh, great. And the director just said straight up to me, he was like, look, we get hammered at this thing, so I don't think you're going to come. I was like, okay. And he said, so instead, here's £100 voucher and go take your missus out for dinner. So I was like, and I think this was an interesting moment, because I was like, okay, that's a really nice sentiment. I remember my wife saying, there's quality. We spend like £10 at Taste of Lahore.
I was about to say, you're not the kind of guy to spend £100. That's like 50 meals for you.
Steady, but the half grilled chicken meal does well.
Not the 2-piece.
No, we share one each, innit? So that initially felt like a really nice sentiment. And I think it still does feel like a nice sentiment, but it did make me kind of go, hold on a second. am I part of the team then?
Mm.
Is this whole thing about being a team where you work hard together, you play hard together, you lose together, you sacrifice for each other, is that now secondary when it comes to celebration?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because even in, like, for example, you're a Liverpool fan, aren't you?
I'm in.
You're a Liverpool fan, aren't you?
I'm a Liverpool fan, yeah.
So when Liverpool won the league or the Champions, or whatever, there's that clip with...
We've won so many things.
Oh, yeah, all right. What's his face? Mane.
Yeah.
He had that thing where he was interviewed and he was like, yeah, I'm not celebrating with them because, they're just doing their own thing. Or he went to a different changing room.
Yeah.
And that for me is like, that's crazy. It's like, you're one of your best players and you're just kind of like leaving him out because you're putting your alcohol above.
It's an interesting one because I mean, okay, we'll talk about the football example a bit further because even the Liverpool doctor Zafar Iqbal, I think it was, he was saying that when they won, I think the FA Cup once upon a time, they packed up all of his clothes, took them out of the room. And we're like, we're going to have like a whole, the booze and the champagne going off everywhere.
It's considerate in some ways.
But this is the thing. I think this is probably a conversation we can have a little bit on, which is where and how are the boundaries of culture and values, as you put them, defined? Because we don't live in a Muslim country. We live in a secular Western setting where alcohol is legal and the norm and is I would go so far as to say almost encouraged in many circles and environments, and it's a staple. So, and I think a lot of it does hinge around alcohol, if I'm honest, because no one's out there like encouraging taking other drugs. No one's like, oh, we're all going to smoke weed now together, Sadiq, if you would like to step out.
Sure,
but it's specifically around alcohol, right?
Yeah.
And there's that whole inebriation that comes with it, and everything else. And again, you speak to anyone in the working world, and the office parties, especially the Christmas parties. There's always many a scandal that take place.
Not this week's one because it was virtual.
Yeah, this week's I think was the most halal office.
Just on Wednesday, I was like, "Hi everyone, I'm here. Here's my secret Santa gift." Yeah, absolutely.
So where do you think the line is in terms of tolerance or acceptance, or even making provisions and space for us as Muslims? Because, like you said, that gesture was nice. Give me £100.
Yeah.
But whilst the thought is there, it's like, are you saying at the same time, I'm not compatible with
the team's celebration,
the culture, the celebration? Do you know what I mean?
This is a debate that so it's interesting because I was on one side of it, which was the receiving end, and then on the other side, and kind of like the time where I was the CEO, even now, like in the leadership team, kind of having a say where that line is. Yeah. And I've gone to and fro, and I've seen my mum, who works for a US business, like huge multi-billion FMCG business, and they still refuse to give her a place to pray.
Really?
So even storage room, hallway, whatever, wrote it to HR as well. They've refused it blanketly.
Why? Can we call out the company?
Yeah, we should probably should, but I probably won't.
Let's
not go there. So I've kind of, and then obviously on my side, I've been like, okay, where is the line, right? So my context, and let's take the example of like space to pray, because I think that's another statement for us, right? I don't go in to the business and say, I'm expecting you to find me a place to pray. I think that's unreasonable.
Okay.
Right? Even though I know I just said my mum hasn't found one, I don't think we should expect it. I think it's really, really nice, and I think it's, I guess, somewhat expected amongst general population that it should be standard. But when you're a small business, and that's why I don't forgive the large business, when you're a small business, you got limited space,
you got
right?
Limited space as it is,
you got limited resource. And the way that I kind of had to rationalize it was like, okay, hold on. I was allowed, when I joined the company, they knew who I was. They knew I was a Muslim, right? I was very clear. I said, look, those achievements that I have on my CV is because of my community work. I've been able to run X programs or Y initiatives with thousands of attendees simply because it was in my Muslim community. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very humbled to have done it, but I'm proud that I achieved it. And it's because of my Muslim background. I'm not going to hide it. I'll wear my rings. You know who I am. You know my name. I'm not hiding it, right? So with that, they kind of, I guess, knew what was coming, right? And the very next day, I was like, oh, I need to find somewhere to pray. Not give me somewhere. I need to find somewhere to pray. And we had to use a meeting credit on one of the rooms to go and pray, right? And then we changed office. And then I was praying in the hallway in the fire exit, which again was a bit suspect. But anyway, everyone was okay with it as long as there wasn't a fire. Now, I then had the approach of, and one time one office I was praying in front of the fridge, just as another. So nice. that was always fun at lunch when you find the right
I can imagine someone's waiting for you to
finish up.
Yeah.
Even though you pick like the perfect time, and then they're like, "Oh, he's praying." Damn, and they can't say anything bad, but you're like, "Sorry," but you can't say sorry. But anyway, so where's the fine line? And my thinking is, and maybe it'll continue to move. My thinking is, to the average Joe, my belief in this God and in this need that I need to pray 5 times a day and I need to fast for 30 days in a year is completely random fantasy world. It's fiction, right? To the average Joe. If average Joe is running the business, if he says yes to my fantasy, what's he going to say to like his and her fantasies? Like, oh, I'm not allowed to shower for 30 days, so I'm going to come in smelling in the way that I smell. I'd be like, oh, please don't, Oh no, but it's my religion. It's it's what I think. So my feeling is, I think you have to at some point say, okay, look, you hire someone for who they are, and you try and help them be who they are in the space that you give them. There's no obligation on anyone, because I can easily walk down to, or when in some of the offices, walk down to Holborn Mosque and pray in there. Fine. If I use my lunch break, that's okay. But I think to expect it from your employer is tough. Does that mean the employer is excluding you or not? Depends how they treat you outside of that.
The thing is, I think when it comes to this stuff, I don't think when you look at religions that the requests are unreasonable. I don't think any of that, and for me, fundamentally, it comes down to the fact that we live in a godless society where religion is not appreciated, let's say, for what it is, and that respect is not given to world religions, and not just Islam, but world religions. So in a kind of, and anyone's experience at school, university, from a Muslim background, when you're talking to your non-Muslim friends who are often, and this might be generalizing, but is my experience, and I'm sure yours as well, might come from a Christian background or a Hindu background or whatever, but very rarely are practicing or inclined towards their faith in the same way that I think a lot more Muslims are, at least on some surface level even. But when because of that, there's this kind of that value isn't placed on religion. So when we come, and I, as I said, I don't think the requests are unreasonable. So if you're asking for prayer, I'm going to be fasting. I'm not going to shake someone's hand. I'm not going to go to the pub. I'm not going to drink alcohol.
It's not crazy.
It's not crazy.
Yeah.
Like you positioned it like, okay, fine. I get that. I don't want someone to buy my, if you're going to call it a fancy, I don't want someone to buy my version of the world.
Yeah.
But just tolerate, respect, and accept that. It's not like I'm coming up with my own crazy framework and saying this is me. Yeah. Take it or leave it, because that can shift. Because I can say, okay, I'm going to do this now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I get you.
But I think for me, what's important is that there is this, and everyone has to face this in their own way. And I think back to my one role previous to kind of self-employment and all of this stuff.
Entrepreneurialism.
Entrepreneurship. But I think back to that, and in the interview, after because I made sure I got the job first, and then afterwards I was like, right, listen, there's something you need to know about me. And I said I'm Muslim. I need a space to pray. I fast for a month in the year, and that's pretty much the only things that are going to be a thing. And I will do this as discreetly and not cause a scene and get up and pray in the middle of a meeting, for example. But I just, if you guys can afford me any space to do that, that would be great. Yeah. And I think I guess there's two questions here. So number one, what have you seen? And also, I guess on the other side of things, so now that now that you've been to like a leadership role, you've interviewed people, you've had candidates come forward. How do people approach that process? And then also, secondly, when your values change, which it would be weird if they didn't, right? If in life, if the same person at 18, 19, those values that you hold, if you held them exactly the same when you're 30, 40, there would be something wrong. Yeah. So as you evolve and grow and develop as a person, hopefully spiritually as well, how do you then kind of make that apparent? And because I guess there is going to be a fear element there, because it's like if one day, or if on day one, like we mentioned in the first example, I'm happy to go to the pub, and as soon as I come in, I'm like, oh, by the way, guys, I don't go to the pub. They'll be like, well, who was that guy then? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I hear you. So on the first point, I don't think I've got anything interesting to say, to be honest, because despite having interviewed loads and loads and loads of candidates over the last 5 years, there's
No
never
one has
actually
asked
been
for a prayer space.
there's never been, and I imagine there's been a few not many actually, a few Muslims who I've interviewed, and I think they just kind of go, they know,
obviously,
yeah, there's going to be, you're gonna sort me out, and it's one of those. But there's not been any other requests. I think that's maybe why I'm a little bit like, I don't think we can come out saying just for us, because we're the only people left in society that have a weird request when we're at work. I think that's kind of what maybe I've got my vision or viewpoint on that. They need to do it out of respect for you, not out of obligation. I think it needs to be that way, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah.
On the point of, and I think this is a really interesting one, how do you kind of communicate that your beliefs are either getting stronger, sometimes weaker, but let's take the objective case that your beliefs getting stronger, and therefore you can't do things that maybe you did do, or you can, or you will refrain from doing things that maybe now seems a bit excessive, right? So my journey's been, there's been a bit of that actually, because my tolerance to being around alcohol, for example, has got much more intense. Intense means I'm okay with it. Has become much. I've become much more averse to it, right? I'm like, I really want to be careful about it.
Your allergy levels have spiked.
My allergy. Yes, exactly. Need a vaccine. That's been, honestly, I felt that's been tricky, and I think that's kind of. I'd love to know what my colleagues think about it. To be honest, I think they've kind of seen me.
Well, if they're listening to this, then feel free to email
Yeah.
Sadiq and let him know what you think.
Please don't at the same time, so I'd be pretty panicked to see what your opinion is. But I think that is tricky. Like being able to explain that is tough. I don't think it's. Yeah,
Do you think? Okay, so whilst you kind of process that, I've just been thinking about theory versus practice.
Yeah.
Because I think, in a theoretical world, if you ask a lot of people, Muslims, would you feel comfortable going to a pub? Would you feel comfortable standing outside a pub? Would you feel comfortable in the office where everyone's drinking and you're not? The answers would be no. And then in practice,
it's a different story.
It's a different story, right?
Yeah.
Because even like, for example, okay, I'm not comfortable with any of that, but then the office Christmas party, everyone has to go, especially in big companies. It's like, it's a thing. You can't, it's almost like a mandatory part of work.
Yeah.
And there is alcohol everywhere. And I guess how do we reconcile that? And like I said, you might go to one Christmas party and then realize in practice, actually, whilst I thought I would be okay with it, I found it disgusting.
Yeah.
And then speak up in the future. Do you know what I mean? And really, so how have you managed that then?
I think, again, I was very open with it from day one.
No, but I mean the evolving nature of your.
I think I'll go to a conversation I remember having in the team that I think maybe like feel, okay, this is one of those awkward religious, like, why do you do that kind of conversations, right? This is just before COVID, actually, if not end of last year or early this year.
Oh yeah.
And two things came up. Right? Yeah, office days, those ones. Two things came up. One was they mentioned, and it was really weird, and I feel weird saying this, but anyway, we'll say it. They were like, you don't really, like, unlike the other guys, talk about women. And I was like, well, yeah. They're like, and it was just like a statement. It wasn't really anything more. They just kind of said it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. Oh. It was just like this really weird, and I think that kind of just spoke volumes. So I was like, I think they just kind of, then it sunk in for them, like, okay, there is a bit of a different approach as to how he sees women, hopefully a bit more respectfully and whatever. So remember, that was a very weird moment that almost spoke for itself, volumes, right? But the other one was, we've never heard you listen to music or talk about music, which I think is one of the toughest conversations, actually, for people. I think people, if you tell them you don't drink, it's not like, what? But music is an interesting one, because that's super neutral for 99% of people, even Muslims, for a lot of us, right? So you don't really listen to music. What's that about? And I think that was one of those which I kind of had to explain myself, the philosophy, right?
Yeah.
And again, I think if you have the ability to articulate it, it was fine. I was like, look, music in principle, can be a positive things, but the way it is today, and the kind of messages and themes that it talks about, and it relates to the subject. Obviously, they just said you don't talk about women. I was like, half the stuff is hardly great towards the opposite gender, right, and vice versa. And I think that you kind of have to sweat those moments out. I honestly don't think there's a better way to say it than just sweat it out.
But I also feel like it's important for you to know why you do and don't do certain things.
Intellectually, you have to have an intellectual response.
But this is, I guess for me, this is the problem a lot of times, is that we are told, don't shake hands. We're told, don't listen to music. We're told this, that, whatever. Yeah. But if we haven't processed it, as you say, intellectually, rationally, and we haven't understood it for ourselves, then when you find yourself in that
You're
moment,
stuck.
I don't listen to music because I don't.
Yeah.
Like you don't really have,
stuck.
you know what I mean? You
You're
don't have an answer. And that I guess then also, because this is, so even when we were speaking to Haura Milani on the podcast a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
she was reflecting on her experiences, and a lot of it is like, oh, I as a Muslim woman, I don't shake hands, for example, with a non-mahram man, but obviously you don't say non-mahram, but you know, and the response is like, oh, but that other hijabi did it.
Yeah.
Why don't you?
Why don't you? Yeah.
And it's important. And she was even talking about like practicing in the mirror at home, that like 5 seconds that you have to explain why you don't shake hands.
That's impressive.
Which is no, but I think it's really
smart.
important. Like you know the struggles that you're gonna face. You know what questions you're gonna get asked.
Yeah.
And I found, again, like my experience in that world, where I found myself refining my answer around alcohol, for example, or some of my own political, social, religious views. Like, okay, I had a conversation with one guy. I'm like, okay, he didn't quite get it. Maybe I didn't explain it right. Let me try again.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, that you appreciate and you're receptive as well to what you're kind of putting out there.
Absolutely. I think you have to have the intellectual answer. Forget for everyone else, for yourself before anyone, right? And I think without that, and unfortunately it's become a really norm that we just take on the rules and move on. And I don't, there's opening up a different can of worms, but something I'm very passionate about, which is, I don't think, especially our generation, whilst we appear to be very intellectual and smart, and we're both wearing glasses, which testifies to this look.
I watched it for the podcast, to be honest.
That we don't actually know why we're following this faith. And it's a big part of what I speak about at the moment, which is, if someone were to ask you, why do you follow Islam? Why do you pray 5 times a day?
Yeah.
Forget alcohol, music, women, blah, blah, blah. Just the fundamentals.
The core.
I think 99% of us would stumble. We wouldn't have a clear-cut sentence to say, unlike, like, so why do you follow the Prophet? And a lot of us would go, he is the final messenger. He has the miracle of the book, and etc. We'd have a pretty articulate answer. Forget that. We're talking, why do you follow Islam? A lot of us would be like, it means submission.
It's right.
It's right, obviously, and it's flaky, which is no surprise that. But
I mean, as you said, this is like
separate topic. Yeah.
Separate topic, but Tawheed is fundamentally where I think we let ourselves down a lot, 100%. Right? Not understanding Tawheed, and then building a house of cards on top of a very weak foundation.
Yep.
This is the thing, like for myself at university, I found myself having to really dig deep and understand what I fundamentally believe.
Yeah.
Because you're confronted and people are asking you questions. Why do you do this? Why don't you do that? What do you believe about this?
Yeah.
Why do you go to the mosque? Why do you fast? And sometimes the cliche answers that we've been given, and we just go, okay, when we're told this by our parents or by our madrasa teachers or at the mosque or whatever, when you give it to a non-Muslim, they're just like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of scratching your head, having to figure out.
And I think that, and I'll link this back a bit to kind of the experience that I had, right? This was only maybe a year or so ago. So after like with the company that I'm with, so it's a French business, and they have something called the French Chamber of Commerce, right? So where all the French businesses set up in the UK meet and help each other network and find new clients and whatever. And they sent some of the top businesses within that chamber, the UK leaders of them, to France for a day trip, right? I'm going to link this to kind of this whole praying, like make the decision to pray even the most random moments, because this one is particularly random. And I think it wouldn't have happened had it not clicked for me a few years back as to how important this thing is, right? So anyway, we're talking like chairmans of pretty large household names that a lot of people have products in their house for that are French, 50, 60-year-old men and women all speak fluent French, and then me,
nice.
Hardly looking the part. And we're being received by the UK's ambassador to France, who was the sidekick to David Cameron whilst he was in office. So someone pretty significant. They're kind of it's not the embassy, but like the house where they stay is 2 doors next to Macron's office in Paris. And
good pronunciation of Macron, by the way.
Thank you.
Well done.
We'll try.
French lessons are working out. Okay.
I mean, we're trying. So we can do the podcast in French if you want. We can give it a go. We won't get very far. No. So it's very high profile place, like 9 Downing Street would be the equivalent, right? So we get there. they check your passports, already panicked because like Iraq stamps, Iran stamps, every stamp under the sun that they probably didn't want to see was on there. So we're there and super posh, and this is where the Queen, or they say this is where when the royal family go to France, they stay here or they visit there, whatever, because he is their representative whilst they're in the UK. So we get there, well received. I must just say the lunch was great. And I think this comes back to the point on putting your belief first, like just saying it. So they emailed a few weeks before saying, what do you guys want to eat? Like, what's your dietary requirements? And I was like, okay, Paris, I've been there before, been with the co-founders, we've been to a Michelin style restaurant. I couldn't eat a single thing on the menu. All the fish was not legit for us. And then the rest was meat. So there was no vegetarian option. And the vegetarian option, the chef then came out. So only served three tables. That's it. It was 2-star Michelin chef.
Okay.
So he was like, okay, I need to make you something. So I'll make you a mushroom risotto. I was like, yeah, great. And I said, hold on. Is that going to have white wine? He's like, thanks for reminding me. So even that, I was like, this is... And I had one plate of mushroom risotto and the other guys had 8-course meals. These 8-course taster meals.
Yeah.
I was like, steak and this. I was like, I was watching after round 1, 7 to go. Anyway, so I've been there, right? And with the French guys, I've learned it. So we're at this kind of like residence and they sorted me out for food. So just being up front, they really sorted me out, made me feel right at home, even though we're sharing a very interesting table with very interesting people on there that I can't go into too much information. But anyway, that finished and I was like, I need to pray. It was 2:00. Eurostar was at 6, Dhuhr time kind of thing. So I was like, can I pray? And they wanted me to film something upstairs. And this guy was like, yeah, I'm sure we can find a room somewhere. So we're going up and he's like, let's try this one. So we open this door and it's like a huge living room, like a royal living room that you'd kind of visit at a castle. I was like, what the hell? And he's like, just pray there, like no one's gonna know. So okay. So I put my sallah down and there's pictures there. I was like, maybe I should turn them around because it's a bit close.
Yeah.
So I get there and I shouldn't have. I was a bit nosy, like, well, who's on the pictures? And you've got like the princes with their kids and the queen and it's like family photos. I was like, this is strange, this is super weird. But I think it just comes back to this point of if you're upfront with it, and regardless of if it's an employer, if it's whatever, even like I used to be a huge Watford fan. I still am. I haven't left them, but used to be very active. I remember we were playing away at Hull on a weekday night. It was promotion season. I was praying next to the coach when we got to the stadium. It's just like if people just see what your value is and that you're a nice person, you say to police guy, hey man, sorry to be a nuisance, can I just use this place? We're away at Forest and they let me out at half time to pray. Like if you're just a bit objective and it clicks in your head and you're confident in the explanation, be it drinking, be it going out is huge as well, you should underestimate that, be it praying, maybe be it hijab. And I'm not here to start talking about the hijab scene, but I think if you're able to explain and articulate why to yourself first, why should you be scared of explaining to anyone else? And
I guess then moving on to your experience with Theodo, can we name the company? Theodo, the French tech company that you that we once met at as a junior. But you haven't grown any height wise.
I grew a beard.
You grew a beard, and you grew in
width. Yeah, I get it.
I wasn't going to say that.
Well, I feel insecure, Salim. So
I literally wasn't even going to go there. Anyways, I was going to say you grew in reputation because you became.
You
CEO.
Can't show me on screen anymore. I need like the shadow. You fuzz me out.
So, anyways, no. What I was saying is that. So you found that company.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you were quite upfront and you prayed in front of the fridge. You prayed wherever you could. What was the progression like? I guess through the ranks there, and what were the conversations like around values? And I think specifically, like the coming back to that time that we met when I found out you became CEO, when you said I just wouldn't take this on. What was the response like from the directors of the company when you would say that? Because I think for a lot of people that don't have conflicts with these kinds of things, and also I guess another question is, have you seen others having conflicts like yourself, maybe based on their own principles, not the Islamic framework or whatever else? So when it comes to values in the workplace, and especially from a decision-making perspective, where it's not just, I refuse to work on this for myself, but I refuse for our company to do this, and all of these people are gonna make less money, or like the company's gonna make less money, that then puts a bit of pressure on your head.
It's tough. And I remember two specific moments. One was with a client that was selling wine online, an e-commerce platform. and the other was a gambling business. There were sponsors of a championship football club as well, so not a small client and they actually were a client of ours for 6 months. So I wasn't in my like the senior role, which was kind of quite junior. So the first one I remember, and it was tough because we're small. I said we're only 10 people. This was around about the time where you guys came in. It was the wine business that came in, and at that time we were like craving business. You know, we were like, do we shut shop at some point, or it was tough. In 2016, it was a really tough year. And this client came in. He had like an 80K budget, which was decent. You know, it wasn't crazy, but it was good for us at that time. So obviously we took it on, and I said, look, I'm not gonna be part of the sales process. It's wine. Like I'm on the side. They're like, okay, fine, no problem. Sales is always someone else to do it. Delivery for the project, however, on the business side, it was really just me. And I was like, this is sweaty moment again. Like this is the tough one. And this for me, I think, you know, and I respect this business so much, and I respect the founders of this business so much. And that's not just because we're together in it, but the journey we've been on and the respect they've shown me and my wife the whole way through has been unquestionable. I would say actually unquestionable, which is not easy to say of many people in business, right? So shout out to them if they're going to listen. I don't know. But I was like, look, I can't, like I simply can't. And they said, we haven't got anyone else, so it's just what it is. And I was saying to them, like, look, if you absolutely need me to, maybe I'll do it, but I won't take salary for X part of my time. I cannot. It just wouldn't be right with me. It's back to this whole thing, like, you know, when people would take psychometric tests for graduate assessment days and whatever, and they'd get their friend to do it. I'm like, that's not okay. You're lying from first principles. In this case, I'm like, I can't even take income if it's something like that. But we managed to shift things around just by having, I think, a mix of confidence, but also trust of the guys. This comes back to, do they value or not? To say, look, I don't feel comfortable doing it.
And what was the response like when you said that? Was there understanding? Was like, come on.
There's of course, and literally because there's French, it's come on. You know, it's very much like that. So that is quite accurate. Of course, there was that, because and that's not them being dismissive or rude. That's the thing. Like, is it really that significant? And at that point, you have to be like, honestly, it is. Like, it's quite a big deal breaker for me. Like, it's not okay in my world. So that was tricky, that one. And I think similarly with the gambling business, and this is interesting because the gambling business that we took on, again, I was very removed from it. I said I wouldn't, just didn't want to get involved, didn't want to touch in whatever format. Yeah. I think there was even some uneasiness about some people being like, should we be, supporting a gambling company or should we not?
Others in the company.
Yeah. It wasn't a huge discussion, but I think there was a couple of question marks or whatever. There was a technically really great project, lots of data, lots of graphs, visuals. Like, it was quite nice. So I think in that perspective, like I was able to kind of put my stance in, but on the other side, it's difficult. And I remember we had in the time where I have been in the leadership role or in one of them, there was a defense, a business ready to the defense basically that came in, and they were like, it was an amazing project.
You mean like a military defense?
Military defense. Yeah. Amazing project, right? And let's remove the actual consequence of what military defense means.
Ignore the people that are going to die.
Ignore this bit for a second, just for the case of the example. It was a very like augmented reality. How do we test certain weaponry, and what does that look like, and can we recreate battle situations and stuff like this? And you're like, that's like an engineer's dream in terms of like the
from
complexity. Data visualizations, latest tech, huge budget. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And I went back to the leadership team and I was like, yes or no? Or like, nah, defense is, that's not going to sit well for the majority. That's not going to be something that flies. So there is this like moral standards that people have, right?
But is that dictated, or I guess in your company's case, is that dictated by the company culture, ethos, values, or the individuals within the company?
Couldn't tell you. I think it's a mix of both.
You think it's like interchangeable?
I think it's a mix of both, yeah. Because I think it's a mix of both.
Interesting.
Because at the same time, and I learned something really interesting actually. So I was speaking to someone from one of the big tech firms. And again, I don't know if I can reveal which one, but one of the big tech firms in the world at the moment. And he was saying they, as product managers, when they take a project to the engineers, it's not top down. It's not, hi engineer, this is what you're working on. It's the engineers that have to, the product managers pitch their product to the engineers, and the engineers decide whether they're going to work on it or not. And I think that philosophy is so important in modern day tech, modern day product. And it's a very Toyota inspired thing. The product guy has to pitch it to the engineers to say, yeah, we'll work on it or not. I think similarly here, if you don't think your team is going to have the buy-in to the project they're going to work on, you're not going to expect the best work from them. That's natural, right? Even if they're getting paid good money, right? They're not going to engage with it at the same level as if it's like healthcare, you know, passionate, tech for good in it versus, you know, some other boring industries. It's not going to be the same. And I think this comes back to this like moral standards, right? I think everyone's got that compass in them. Everyone can resonate with it. Everyone knows roughly from their, you know, let's not get too deep, but like from their fitrary perspective, they know what's right and what's wrong. They do. Yeah. And they know when they're kind of shaking wrong, but they're just dismissing it. So I think it's there for everyone, and it's a case of discussing it. No one's going to look at you, and if they do, you don't want to work for them anyway. They're just probably a bigot, you know.
So I guess the last thing I want to ask you specifically about this part of the conversation is just around your experience when you were being considered for the CEO role.
Yeah.
With regards to values and how, I guess, it was how the directors of a company saw you, and because if they knew what you were about, they would knew the potential kind of, we call it risk, but the limitations around you. And the reason I'm asking this is because I think from what I've seen, at least in companies, broadly speaking, you very rarely see, I think, Muslims in senior leadership positions. And you've mentioned, you know, the culture clashes and whatever else, which I think is definitely apparent. But rarely do you find Muslims who are quite strong in their beliefs and values and kind of uphold that. And I know you know, from a personal perspective as well. And I respect the fact that, you know, you've maintained.
It's cute. It's a cute movement. It's a cute movement.
I'm just laughing because we obviously recorded this bit and then the whole computer died, and I thought I'm not going to say it again.
But here you are. Here you are saying it.
But no, I respect the fact that, you know, you've always kind of maintained, and almost in a headstrong way sometimes, where I'm like, I feel like, oh, it's at your own detriment you're doing this, but it's like, these are your values, right? And very rarely do you kind of have I seen, let's say, people get right to the top of a company. Whilst being as, let's say, just stubborn as you are, when it comes to,
let's use that one.
Let's use that word. I think that's nicer than respect. So I guess, you know, what was the process like? I'm sure you've had conversations with them, very open conversations.
Loads.
What's been the kind of feedback from them on that throughout that whole process?
Honestly, and we still talk. I think we still talk about it till this day. I think even maybe up until about a year ago, myself and so the co-founder that's with us in the UK is the one I've been closest with and worked side by side with the last 5 years. We still talk about it, and he's still like, you should just speak to the imam, you know, just check, you know, are you sure you're not allowed to, you know? And we'll go out for dinners, and he's like, I remember there's one random anecdote. One time we were in Paddington and we just won a massive insurance client there together, and he was like, you know what, let's go for dinner. And he was super respectful. He knows about it, so we had our nice dinner. And he's like, which one to order? I was like, oh, this dish looks nice. And I was like, oh, wait, I don't recognize that fish. So I was on Al-Islam and trying to find the fish list. And he's like, this is ridiculous. And then it was like, you can have this type of trout, but you can't have this type. So I had to call out the chef. I was like, which type of trout? And he goes, you need to figure this out. Like, you can't be at a client meeting going, what type of trout can I have? So anyway, so we had this conversation a lot, and he was like, look, it is going to be difficult for you.
Yeah.
He said it from very early on. He said, if you really want to, like, you know, be involved with the business at a more senior level, it's going to be tricky because in my nature, he calls me a bit of a robot. Like I work hard, I work people hard, but my version of play is go home, right? I go home and I love spending time at home. I love spending time in the community and whatever. That's my relaxed time. My relaxed time is not spending more time. As much as I love being around my work colleagues, it's not spending time with them in the evening. It's me going home, right? And that's just kind of, it's a family life. It's just kind of what it is. So that's going to be tricky for you because people want to celebrate with you. People want to enjoy the hard work. When you've signed a huge deal, my reaction is Balotelli style, like I've posted the post, so I'm going home. That's my job. I'm not going to celebrate. And I'm a bit similar. I don't know. I'm just like, yeah, cool. We've won the deal and that's my job in this role. So that has been a challenge. Yeah. And we've constantly spoken about it. I remember there was this two really interesting moments. We have a company conference every year that we go away to. First one where I experienced it, I wasn't in any senior role. This was my first year there. I was in Barcelona. And I think this was the first time I experienced what this like celebration factor would feel like, and like how I would feel in that context. And that's what really prompted the conversation. They're like, where did you go that evening? So anyway, company conference finished in the day, and then they're like, okay, we're going out for dinner in the evening. I was like, oh, nice, dinner, not bar, just dinner, good. So we get to the place, I'm like, sit down, fantastic. And they're like, oh yeah, you guys are from there. You've got like a private area. And I was like, great. We go across, everyone's standing. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's just like a reception or whatever. And there's food coming around, and there is alcohol, and I'm already like, okay, now I'm getting uncomfortable. I don't know. I don't really want to be here now. I'm already a bit nervy. But and this is back to our earlier point in the conversation of like, now would I go to that same place? I'd really try my best not to. And that's one of those like, but you were there in Barcelona in 2016. Yeah. It's one of those, right? So we're there eating, whatever. And then eventually the group CEO got up on stage, the other co-founder, and he was like, guys, we had such a great year together. We've just opened up the UK. This is the third business in the group. Well done. We worked so hard. And now we've worked so hard and we've showed Barcelona how hard we can work. We're going to show Barcelona how hard we can party. And I was oh no. And next thing you know, just...
That's when you start dropping your moves and...
lights dropped, music kicks, and I was like...
out.
Gone.
Yeah.
I fully panicked. I literally panicked. I was like, who, what, like, what's... I remember like I was then, okay, I need to go eat because I couldn't eat any of the food because I was like, have they touched that with alcohol fingers whilst they're serving all that stuff? And I found like this Taste of Lahore in Barcelona, which was
lovely.
It was literally carbon copy, same layout, same menu. Spoke English to them because they can speak English because they speak Pakistani. I speak Urdu, English, Pakistan, and edit that one out. English, Urdu, Spanish, the whole lot. Yeah. So that was kind of like first experience. And then the next day they're like, where were you? And I managed to convince a few of the guys to go watch a Espanyol match because they're in Barcelona, right? And that was kind of like my way of showing people I can chill just in certain environments, right? Yeah. So that was kind of one moment. Second moment, but this is where I was in kind of the leadership position, so it was a bit different, and it was the day we came back from Iraq, actually, because then I went straight off to Berlin.
I remember, yeah.
I was very ill, but anyway. And I met what's that ref's name? The guy that was on the front of Pro Evo one year.
Luigi Collina.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he was there. And
you didn't tell me this.
I put it on Twitter. My Twitter's now deleted, so I think I've lost the picture forever.
Oh, there's a picture as well?
Yeah. So he was doing a big presentation to talk about how tech has inspired sport and whatever. And he spoke about Watford, would you believe, in his presentation. I went up to him before and I was like, I wish you could have officiated Watford. And he was like, watch out for my presentation. I'm going to call you. I was like, okay. So we're getting through the presentation. He goes, there's a match called a playoff. It's the most expensive game in football. Yeah. And it was decided by a penalty one year. And the game was between, and where's that guy that came up to me? I was like, Watford and Palace. Oh, no. And
we went to that together as
well,
didn't we?
We did go to it together, yes. That's when Salim first became my friend, because I had tickets. Anyway.
You had very good access to Watford that year. We became very close friends.
And Leeds for was it the Leeds game? I think it was the Leeds game. Yeah. So anyway.
No, Leicester.
I think you came to the Leeds one as well, actually.
I became a Watford fan for about 3 weeks.
For the best weeks of Watford's history.
And you were my plug. You were my plug for that month of my life.
It served me well till today, clearly. Anyway.
Got you on the podcast, mate.
Yeah, there we go. So anyway, we finished the conference and then everyone was going out that evening. So again, and I learnt my lesson now. It's not dinner.
Yeah.
It's a chill. It's a party. It's a this. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going. Difference here is that they wanted the different leaders of the business to get up and say something.
Dance.
No, not I think they just wanted to say something, like a speech, whatever. But I was like, I'm not
coming.
I'm not going.
Yeah.
And that was one of those moments where it's like, yeah, but you were there. It's going to be fine. It's just like a reception first, and then you can go. And I was like, I'm not. And especially for us, just come out from Iraq, it's like pilgrimage. You're really on a spiritual high. Like, there's no way I can be like praying the night before in a very sacred place and then be like, cool, I'm in a nice reception and everything's fine. Like,
yeah.
And I remember getting a call and they were like, you're not coming. I was like, no, let the coach leave. And they're like, well, the coach is waiting for you. And I was like,
go.
Just let it go.
Without me.
And I got on my electric scooter and I went to the Lebanese restaurant and got my lunch by myself and went home the next day. So I don't even stay the weekend anymore.
Oh, really?
The year before in Germany as well, in Heidelberg. Stayed for the day. It was Shahr Ramadan. So I took the guys out for a pipe because the conference was a bit boring. So I took the business guys out for a pipe, which was great. German pipes, fantastic. Had some ice cream, left.
Nice.
Amsterdam, same thing.
So it just in the last sort of 5-10 minutes, I wanted to go back to the beginning of your journey.
Yep.
And looking from the perspective of a young man or woman who has just graduated and is looking for inspiration, role models, wanting to look up to people who share the same values, because obviously we look for ourselves in others. So when you're looking for role models, you're always looking for, all right, someone that looks like me, sounds like me, has some of the same cultural touch points or even experiential touch points in their life that I can resonate with and can see myself in. What do you think, I guess, from a Muslim perspective, are the shall we say offerings in terms of what we're looking up to? Because, and I'll kind of put myself out there first and say that I feel like when it comes to talking about business and entrepreneurship and all of these things, there is an unfortunate void, I think, that has been filled by a very particular type of influencer. So, and again, I think, speaking to your experience and strengths, there's no point discussing the hijabi influencer side of things, which I think has become a big thing, the makeup artists and all of that stuff. But then for guys and for men particularly, I feel like there's a very particular type of success that is promoted, and it's one where you have your fast cars, you have your luxury lifestyle, but you also keep it real, #Deen, pray 5 times a day, that kind of thing. And so I guess, again, what was your experience when you were looking to get employed? What are the messages you're getting as a young person, and what do you think young people are getting today when it comes to this stuff? Because the reason I ask this as well is that I feel like what you kind of put out yourself and the energy that you give off is like, yes. And as I said, like, I was baffled and shocked when I found out you had made it to CEO at this company, because you don't brag about it. You don't go out on Twitter and Facebook and be like, hey guys, look what I've just done. I'm amazing. And I still pray. But you just kind of do your thing, right? What was that like?
Honest answer, I don't think there is really much in the social media world that I looked up to with this. Like, I really don't think there was anything, or is anything actually, that exists in the social media world or influencer world that's public and accessible. I'd say public and accessible. That has this kind of mindset maybe that I believe in. When I was graduating, so that's 2015, so 5 years ago now, just over, that kind of big time Muslim entrepreneur thing I think just started to kick off. And you saw every Muslim guy flock to it. Like, every single Muslim guy was just talking about it. Like, oh look, Dubai, villas, lovely home, Ferrari, praying, lovely shisha place, and look at that restaurant. Oh, and they did that. But anyway, and I remember I think at points I was like, yeah, that looks quality. I'd love to be able to have
best
that.
of both worlds.
Best of both worlds, yeah. And for whatever reason, alhamdulillah, it was a very different journey for me. Like, 7:20 a.m. I was on the Piccadilly line for like 45 minutes to get to my recruitment job. 20k a year, like that's what it was, and it was rough, and I had really expensive rent as well. It wasn't easy. My wife was studying to become a teacher, so it was complete opposite of what this like lifestyle is meant to be. And I was like, I'm not going to be the fool that with his £5 left in his paycheck saves it up to buy a Louis Vuitton belt. And that's not me saying if you've got a Louis Vuitton belt, I'm coming after you. I'm just
but if it's with your last £5, it is problematic.
I think so. Yeah. I think it's irrational, super irrational. I think it's completely going towards, anyway, we won't go into it. For me, that was a big thing. That I was like, I don't look up to anyone there. I personally, throughout this whole journey, was looking up to my dad, because I was like, you know what, 1972, chucked out Uganda, had to work hard to make it, and he worked hard. And I think it was a double-edged sword, because it meant that I was like, I have to work so hard that even if it's, whatever happens and whatever I sacrifice, not faith, I have to work hard, I have to get there. And that was good, because it helped me work hard and achieve the little that I did. But it kind of made me miss other things in life as well, that maybe I'm starting to like realize, okay, that is important to me. I want to make time for that. I don't need to work so crazy. But anyway, and this is, to be honest, it's a huge topic for me, and it's one that I'm trying to discuss a lot more publicly, to some people's like appreciation, to other people's dismay. I know you said not to talk about the hijabi thing, but I'll mention that because I think it's worth drawing the parallel, right? The hijabi thing's been done to death. Hijabi influences, whatever. Muslim women feel this innate pressure, or women generally feel this innate pressure to look good, nice hair, nice makeup, nice bags, whatever, stereotypes. And I know they're stereotypes, right? But they exist. And that whole world got influenced, right? They all got attracted. Some said, don't fancy it. Others got fully locked in. Hijab came off. We saw the impact. We see the impact, right? On the guy's side, it's been so much more subtle, so much more secretive. Not secretive, so much more subtle, so much more accepted. And now we've got guys who are just going, yeah, I want to live that lifestyle. I want to push hard. I want to grind hard. I'm going to leave school. I'm going to, do this, do that. And yeah, look, I made it on my business class trip to Dubai. Done. Check me out. Flash, flash, flash. And there's no gap in the middle. There's not the 99% of people who aren't that 1%. And similar to the women, you're not all going to, I'll say this in a bit of controversial way, you're not all going to look that way. And if you think she looks beautiful, you're not all going to look that way. That's unfortunately the reality. You can put Snapchat filters and whatever you want to do. It's not going to be the same. The same way, my dear brother, who's 19, 20, 21 coming out of uni, or even 30 and still hasn't figured it out, don't chase that lifestyle. It's 1%, it's 0.5%. And I would even doubt whether it's the right lifestyle you want to pick. So who's saying to these guys, there's this middle ground where you are grinding, you are on the train, you aren't earning that much, you're earning 25, 30, you're earning whatever you are in that year. And it's tough and you're having these weird discussions at work and it's a bit rough and it's not perfect and you got made redundant and you fly Ryanair, and you go to Marrakesh for £30 a night. And that's what I did in my first year of marriage, £26 a night in a Riyadh. Great holiday. I loved it.
You know what was actually, so I'm currently reading The Power of Now.
Okay.
Eckhart Tolle. I don't know if you've read that book.
Last time you said it and I said don't know it, but this time I'm pretending I know the book.
Time
Still haven't read it.
This time I've read more than the previous recording.
Okay, fine.
But I was actually just listening to it earlier today, and it's really interesting that he talks about success and how we define success. And basically the essence of this, and I'm probably actually going to get someone on and do a whole podcast on this book because I find it fascinating. Mm-hmm. But this whole notion of success and being like, I will be happy when I achieve this. I will be happy when I reach there. It means that right now we're not living. Yeah. We're living and we're waiting, we're anticipating.
Chasing.
We're living for something else. And the worst thing is that as we all know, once you get there, you want more or you want something else. Yeah. But even then, it's like you'll never take the moment to appreciate, okay, I've hit that, because by that point your milestone is going to have changed. And that got me thinking about the notion of success. And what that means for let's bring it back home, right? What that means for a Muslim. Yep. Success is not defined by salary. Yep. At no point anywhere in the Quran, in a hadith, does it say, once you hit 50K, you're going to heaven. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like almost the inverse at times, right? And so I think it's really, and this is again something that, why I think at least some of the individuals who present themselves externally and success is the remit of success is material. Yeah, it's the dunya, and it's like, okay, I brought my Islam along with it, but look, I'm successful. Spot on. And the problem is that for young people, when you look at that, that's what you see. Whereas someone who's just going about living their life, and this is the other thing as well, social media in itself has so many pitfalls and blah blah blah, and you've been on social media now, off pretty much social media. I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of the time, the kind of people that you need to look up to, the kind of people are not on social 100%. Media. So you're not even going to see 100%. That.
And I'll resonate with the person example. The guy that has really inspired me to go in many different aspects of my life, community work and day-to-day work, is a guy that you won't find on YouTube, you won't find on social media, hidden. He's a guy who researches and works so hard, family life, intelligent, working for a corporation, has a great balance where he can lecture as well. I don't even think he knows that I look up to him this much, but I kind of tell him and he just ignores it each time. But anyway, it's not you. And he's on the train. He's on the train.
I take the train.
I'm still in. And my opinion is that someone should be promoting him. Even if it's without his knowledge.
But it would go against his very essence.
But without his knowledge, not him doing it himself. And this is the paradox.
Take pictures of him on the slide and post them online.
Be a fanboy, right? Be a fanboy. No, but and this is.
Those Keanu Reeves pictures. Like there's one of him sat outside a shop on on his birthday eating a cupcake, and like some paparazzi person's taking a picture, and there's a whole essay about. Anyways, we're getting sidetracked.
Matrix guy.
Keanu Reeves. You don't know who Keanu Reeves is?
I've just been
separate conversation.
And edit that one out as well. I'm getting looks in the corner.
We're going to talk about this afterwards.
Okay, fine. Is he Sami Yusuf? No. But this whole, okay, so I think just to conclude on this, right? Yes. It's a, for me, it's a really worrying point. Really worrying. And my big concern is that with these Muslim entrepreneurial whatever, and I'm not saying all of them, but there's a good proportion of them who are, as you said, promoting this short-term success, absolutely short-term success. And it's not being called out as much as the hijabi social influencer, because when they took off their hijab, that was a clear red line in Islam. But for these guys, them being in an environment where music's playing like crazy, whilst people are like, stop being holier than thou, that shouldn't be happening. That shouldn't be okay. It shouldn't, even right now, and I don't know how politically we can get, but like the UAE right now, it's not exactly the best place to be from an Islamic perspective in terms of political alignment, right? We shouldn't be promoting, be like, yeah, look, and now I'm chilling in Dubai again. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. And I think for me, it boils down to a really, really critical thing. And you said it's exactly what is the definition of success and who is teaching
young people,
not just the young, 30, 35. And this links, I think, with you had Sayyid Hussein Makki on recently, right? And he was talking crazy theory about the whole like archetype thing. You were getting fully into it. I watched it. It's sold. And I think it was amazing because he managed to give a framework to something I've been trying to explain for a long time. And I think he just nailed it with his understanding in the book he was referring to. My worry is that when I then look at marriages as well, and I then look at people who aren't married even, it's like, just put a mirror against yourself and look at the person you've become. Yes, you're earning 100K. Yes, you're owning your Ferrari. Yes. Where's your family? Where's your manliness? Where's your ability to explain your faith? Because I guarantee you there's a guy who's on 20K at the moment who's way happier than you, who's so much more down to earth, would be an amazing husband to your very daughter, but you're looking for the guy who's got the same wealth as you. And that guy may not be the right match for whatever reasons. And this whole understanding's been lost. And my worry is that we as a community, out of a weird paradox of humility and over humility, we're not saying, look, values first, you can be humble. And
a balance can be struck.
The Prophet didn't become famous by just being humble, right? There was a campaign. I can't validate this, but, just the theory, he had amazing ethics, right? He had an amazing approach, had an amazing vision, divine vision. But he had people that backed him, and I would say, marketed him, right? It was like, there is this prophet, you need to get to know him. He's so trustworthy. He's so reliable. He's so whatever. He's so authentic. You need to go and meet him. You need to go speak to him. He's got a different philosophy. Nowadays, we're like, you need to meet this guy. He's got a Ferrari, man. He's got his own business. But we don't ever now advertise it. This guy is so humble. And his family life is incredible. We don't value that anymore, which comes down to, okay, what is success in this life? And I think, and I'll end on this point, which is there's this beautiful narration that Amir al-Mu'mineen talks about it, and I think we're all stuck in it, to be honest. And just paraphrasing, he talks about your soul being between in a war between two armies. And one army is led by the merciful and is led by your kind of godly mindset and truthfulness and honesty, etc. The other side is led by shaitan, and it's led by your lowly desires, your hawa and nafs, etc. And he said, look, simply, your soul's just going between the two. And every decision you make, whether it's in your job interview, that I need to be like this or I'm not going to be like this, whether it's in your first day at work saying I need to pray or not, whether it's come out for a drink, Sadiq, it's just one evening, or whether it's how your spouse interacts with you or your to-be spouse interacts with you, whatever. Yeah. Every single time we're in that pendulum. And the concern is, because we define success without realizing it in the materialistic, lowly, whatever, it drives those behaviors of power, hungry for power, fame, whatever. And the other side, where the Prophet would be promoted for his attributes, we don't care about. Yeah. We don't care about the godly even though 99 names of Allah, merciful, forgiving, loving, generous, kind, whatever. Who on earth, and if I were to say to you, Salim, there's this guy, you'd probably say, right? Salim, there's this guy who's really kind. You'd be like, so what?
Good for him.
Yeah, exactly. Well right. Salim, he's done 100K. Well, interesting. Or maybe not. But you get the point, right? Yeah. And I think I'm worried, super worried, that it's not being pushed out enough for the sake of humility, and actually we need to get the point across, because you can be successful.
So I'm very nervous right now, because we've reached the point in the podcast last time where everything went wrong.
Cut, yeah.
So I'm anxious and keen to just wrap up.
It's a nice way to say it's got boring.
Thank you very much. No, genuinely it hasn't. This is like the most interesting bit, I think. But we've spoken for quite some time, and maybe there's a further conversation to be had.
Part two.
About the second half of things, because I fundamentally echo a lot of what you've just said about who people are looking up to and how and what role models are out there and everything. And I think there is cleaning up that needs to be done of that space. And unfortunately, unless and until we have the right people in those places, the void is going to be filled,
and we'll lose another generation for another reason.
We'll lose another generation. But that's I guess a community-wide kind of struggle. But if young people and old people, if anybody basically is able to wake up and assess their own values in life and what they're trying to achieve in life, and if the first thing is this is the number,
check.
There's something wrong fundamentally. Do you know what I mean? And obviously that's not to belittle the fact that people have monetary struggles and
of course
there is stability that's required.
Yeah.
But happiness is not dictated by salary.
No.
And again, if I can just come back to one more concept in the book, it talks about your life situation versus your life.
Yeah.
Your life situation is like, okay, I'm sitting here now, or I can be standing. My life is constant, regardless of my life situation. By the book, it's genuinely a very, very interesting read.
And I say this to everyone, and people like at work when we went through a difficult phase, and when I stepped down as being the CEO, and all that, people were like, "Oh, it must have been so difficult. Why would it be difficult? Oh, you're no longer the CEO." I'm like, what did that even mean?
Yeah.
What does the title mean?
Like it's arbitrary stuff.
It's an arbitrary title. Right? I learned how to be humble. I'll tell you that much, because without a team, you can do nothing. And you
lost the dressing room, didn't you? In football terms,
dressing room, absolutely.
Anyways, let's wrap up there. Thank you very much. I'm glad. I mean, we've got 2 backup recordings as well, so hopefully we haven't lost this. But thank you very much for coming in again. I enjoyed the second conversation more almost.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll have to get everyone else's opinion. I don't know. I'm just talking. I have no idea.
Anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I was going to say I'll see you soon, but let's chat after we finish.